A controversial new bill is raising flags amongst law enforcement officials in West Virginia. The new law will allow gun owners to carry concealed weapons without a permit and does away with measures meant to reduce gun violence, such as required background checks and gun safety training programs for people 21 and older. The new law was supported by the NRA and was widely opposed by law enforcement officials throughout the state, as it allows anyone to carry a concealed weapon but provides no way of letting officers know how much training or expertise that person has. Now, the bill was voted on by the House on Friday and officially overrode a gubernatorial veto on Saturday. Now, this is the second time this bill has come through West Virginia. In 2015, West Virginia's governor vetoed the bill, and before the House could vote on it to override it, they ended session. So this time around, they did pass it, and Governor Earl Ray Tomblin had this to say: West Virginia's law enforcement officers have dedicated their lives to keeping us safe and helping us in times of need, and it's disheartening that members of the legislature have chosen not to stand with these brave men and women, putting their safety and the safety of West Virginians at risk. So as I said, this was an NRA-backed bill. They have come out and really marketed this as a chance for citizens to practice self-defense and to be free from the government telling them or taxing them on their method of self-defense.
Yeah, and then at first glance you hear, about a law like this being passed in West Virginia. Something similar happened in Texas not long ago. And it's kind of like, well, what's the point? Like, okay, you already have your guns, right? You need the guns, fine. But then you want to take away safety precautions for absolutely no reason, and then hide behind some BS fact like, well, it's so that we can have less government intervention. It has nothing to do with that. I think they're very unhappy with President Barack Obama coming out and really calling for more action to be done against guns, or at least just pro-gun safety. Okay, no one's saying to take the guns away, right. Clearly. That's not what people are even saying. But just the mere fact that you want to mention or suggest that there needs to be more regulations in place restricting who can and cannot get guns is enough to really piss them off. So I think then you see a lot of states, for example, saying, well, you know what, screw you. You want to put more gun laws in place? Well, then we're just going to do the opposite. We're going to make it even more loose and more fuzzy regarding who can and can't have a gun, or where you can put it, or where you can hide it, or how much training or how much background check needs to be done. We're going to do less just to say F you.
Yeah, and the NRA has come out. As I said, they were a huge proponent in marketing this bill. And Chris W. Cox, who is the executive director of the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action, had this to say about the bill being passed. Self-defense is a fundamental right that must be respected. Law-abiding West Virginians are now free to choose the method of self-defense that best suits their needs. The NRA and our 5 million members are pleased that the legislature voted in support of West Virginians' Second Amendment freedoms. And this is really troubling to me, this whole argument of, oh, you're going to take our guns just because Obama wants to do more stringent background checks or have a waiting period when you apply for a gun. So the opposite of that, like you said earlier, is to just say, all right, well, anyone who's over 21 who wants to buy a gun can have one and carry it. And it does put people at risk. In 2015, only 18 of the 50 states required background checks for guns. And, there's a correlation between states and the gun deaths in that state. There's a direct correlation to how lax they are on the gun laws. And so obviously West Virginia in this instance has the 12th highest instance of gun death or gun-related deaths in the country. And so this is just going to increase as we go to the situation where you have people who aren't properly trained, people who are probably getting a lot of news from outlets that are propagandists and feeding these fears that they have that the government is coming and they have the right to bear arms. And, in this situation, now you have a population of people who may or may not be trained, who may or may not know how to operate a weapon, and now they're carrying it, which is just going to end terribly. And
there's always that argument that you hear all the time from the gun nuts. It's like, don't take away my right to defend myself and my family, right? Because at any time, in the middle of the night, men are going to storm your house and kidnap your wife, and you need to be prepared for that moment. Anytime someone's going to come up with an AK-47, I need to be ready. And that's bullshit, right? I think it's like, what kind of life is that, first off, to live where you constantly fear that someone's going to break into your house or pop around the corner with a shotgun that they have legally because those are the laws that are in this country in place. And so that whole argument, I think it's bullshit. I think they love their guns. They never grew out of the toy gun phase from being a child, and now, they use self-defense as a reason why they need to have a very high-powered shotgun in their home at all times, putting more people at risk as opposed to, creating public safety. I think it's the opposite, and it's just sad. And I don't like to get into that too much because frankly, it's a waste of my breath. But that's just the way I feel about it, and that's the way I think that's the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems facing this country at this moment.
I agree, and it's unfortunate that this is happening at this time, especially when we're looking to, we've seen reports and studies that say that there is effectively a mass shooting every day in the United States, and so we're just going to continue to see these gun-related deaths and instances rise. The law in West Virginia goes into effect in late May, and West Virginia will become one of 8 states that supports these concealed carry without permits, and so to that I just say be safe.